And first of all, I want to welcome everyone. I want to say welcome home from the bottom of my heart. I'm so happy that everyone is home. Everyone is, well, not everyone, I know everyone is safe. I know that people have suffered tragic losses, and my heart goes out to those people. Words can't really express that, but please know that we're here to support you as much as we can. And to that end, there is some literature at the back table. I also have put some handwritten lists out there. One is to get on my email list. If you're not getting my email reports, get on my list if you want to. And another one is to, if you have lost your home or been otherwise affected by fire and you need help, please put your name and contact information on there. There is a lady in Horsefly who is organizing a work bee for quilts, and so there is a column on that page. If you've lost your home and you would like quilts, please say the names or the number of family members and their ages so that we can get you quilts. And the last one is if you want to contribute, if you want to help in some way, to help your neighbors who may be not insured or underinsured, there's a list for that as well. So, and there's a bunch of information there about services that are available. So before I go into the meeting, there are some introductions, and I'll just go through people that are in the room. Not everyone will be speaking. BC Wildfire Service, we have Tony Falco, Neil, maybe you could raise your hands when I call your name. Tony Falco, Neil Brooksbank, and he's not on the list, but Mike McCauley is here someplace. And Mike has really been a great help to us, getting us information funneled through a whole bunch of channels, I think. And so I wanted to give special mention to him. From the Red Cross, we have Naomi Armstrong. Naomi's up here. We also have Stephanie Murphy, Callie Forbes, Communication Officer. From Samaritan's Purse, we have Andy Northup. From the Canadian Mental Health Association, we have Janice Breck. And from the CRD, we have L. Richmond, our chair, and myself. I'm not sure if I introduced myself. I'm Joan Sorley. I think most of you know me. We have our MLA, Coralee from Cariboo North. And we have the RCMP here, and they didn't give us their names, and I've already forgotten. I see right over in the back corner there. And I see we have Allison Martin here from the Fire Service also, and I'm sorry, I don't know the other lady's name. Lindsay Marks also. We have Stan Pogue, our Miocene Volunteer Fire Department Chief. Give us a wave, Stan. We also have our Deputy Chief. Is that your title, Norm? Yeah, Norm is here also, Deputy Chief. And your last name has just gone out of my head. How does that even happen?
Leslie.
Leslie, yes. From our staff, we have Janice Bell, our CAO. We have Reg Steward, who's not our staff, but he is with our EOC throughout this, and he's the liaison to the BC Cattlemen's Association. And we also have Dave, whose last name I can't remember, from Dave Trotter from the Ministry of Agriculture. We have Tim Conrad, who is the Public Information Officer from EOC, and he's videotaping us. And it will go online afterwards. So, have I missed anyone? No? Okay. So before we go into the meeting, I would like to establish some rules for the meeting. We will try and keep presentations to a minimum so that we can allow as much time for questions. We have some guests who haven't been here before, so if you're unfamiliar with the hall, the washrooms are just down that hall, and the exits are clearly marked. So I just want to be sure that we point out and that we're clear that this is not a debriefing. So this is not about what happened during the fires, as much as I know that people want to talk about that. There will be a time, there will be another meeting where we do that, I promise you. And we will have a debriefing. Today, this meeting is about how do we recover, how does the community recover as a community, and how do we help our neighbors, how do we find out what's available to the people who have been through this horrible event, and how do they access the services, what are the services, and how do we help those neighbors who are struggling, who maybe don't have insurance or enough insurance. So all of those things are what we're here to talk about today. And last time I was here, I remember I talked about heightened emotions, and this was like at the beginning of this emergency, and the need to be kind to ourselves and to each other. And so I really am going to be firm here and not allow any comments today that don't kind of mesh with that objective of moving forward together as a community. So we will cut off comments that are inflammatory and don't help us to meet that objective. So having said that, I'm just going to go right into it, and we've kind of gone away from protocol a little bit here today. Usually the politicians speak first, and then we kind of get to the meat of it. But today the Fire Center has asked if they could leave early, or if they could leave once their presentation is done, because they really do have the work to do. So if we can do that, there will be time for questions after the presentation. So I would like to call Tony Falco up, and he will come and talk to us about the fire and what you can expect going home. So, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Tony, can you come over just?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you.
I just need my notes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for having us here. So I think I'll start off with just a general overview of what's going on in the Fire Center today. And then I'm going to turn it over to Neil, the IC, for the fire, and he'll get down to the specifics around the fire. So in the last few days, we've experienced some really favorable weather, and that's really helped us out in the Fire Center, in particular out east by the Quesnel Lakes area. Those areas have taken substantial rain, and the fires out there, we're very confident on what's going on out there. Things are going very well out there. Way out west in the west Chilcotin complex, the Clean coal well and precipice fire. No rain or very little rain, a couple of millimeters. It's been windy. Those fires have been posing a challenge, especially the Clean and coal well fires. And they're right at the moment, depending on the weather, could compromise the highway a bit further. But we're hopeful that the weather forecast going into the future is going to help with that. In the central complex, what we call the Plateau complex, all of the fires, the Pottery fire, the Chilcotin fire, and all, there's probably 8 fires that merged, and we're calling that the Plateau fire. It was an extraordinary event. It was wind-driven, cold front for a day and a half, and we experienced spread rates of 40 to 50 kilometers in a 24-hour period. So that's pretty substantial. We were very successful on the eastern flanks, the areas near the highway and NASCO. It was a little bit of luck too, but we were successful there. So that's a bit of good news there. The Hansville complex is still giving us a problem in the south end in particular, just because of the fuel type that's in there. It's that mountain pine beetle stuff, that half of it's standing, the other half is on the ground. It makes for a very persistent fire that it just won't go away. We are making headway, and like I said, moving forward with the weather that we're expecting this week, we hope to really hammer that one down. The fires in general around Williams Lake, same thing. There's a big difference between Williams Lake and Williams Lake East and out to the west. That west is a real dry belt, as I'm sure most of you can appreciate. And I expect we're going to be out there well into September, if not October, unless we get a major rain. And when I say major rain, I'm talking, 100 mils of rain over 2 or 3 days is really what it's going to take. And I know sometimes here you can get a real nice fall, and that's something we're not wishing for right now. And just some other tidbits of information. As of yesterday, we had 1,673 firefighters out on the line, 60 helicopters, and 283 pieces of equipment. And another thing that we really tried to do after that first week was engage a lot of the local equipment operators and local people. And I can't express my thanks enough to those people. Neil? Neil Brooksbank, he's the IC for the Spokin fire.
Do I really need to use the microphone, or can everyone hear me all right? Probably not accustomed to using microphones, so if I can turn that off, that'll be all right, if that's okay. Pardon me. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for the invite to coming out here tonight. Myself and Alison, we've been in country now, along with our colleagues. The IMT that I have under my command of 11 personnel for about a month now, and we're in the final stages of handing over and heading back to Australia. Wednesday night at about midnight we head back. So we're part of 2 IMTs that initially came in, and we currently have about 160 personnel from across Australia working on the fires up here at the moment. So this deployment at the moment, our first rotation was in Cornell, working in the Cornell fires, and working on some of those bigger fires out to the west of Cornell. So that was quite challenging for the first 14 days. We work a 14-day rotation, generally 14. We can't really say 16 hours because we get in trouble if we say we're working 16 hours, but generally 16 hours for 14 days, have a couple of days off, and then we come back and do it again. So it's been a long haul for us, but it's been absolutely fantastic, the reception and the process that we've been through to get here. And we've also got some other colleagues that are still here, and they'll be here for about another probably 3 or 4 weeks before they head home. We also had additional personnel come in yesterday. Even some people from Tasmania came in yesterday to assist for a 42-day rotation. So I'm responsible, I suppose, for the fires within the central Cariboo command area. Currently have 10 fires and approximately 400 firefighters at the camp. Sometimes that can range up to 600, and sometimes it can drop down to 300. But we're averaging about 400 at the moment. So I'll just go through the fires under my command. In regards to what I call the Wildwood fire, which is, Wildwood fire. Put my glasses on. I'm trying to deny wearing glasses, but anyway, it catches up to us all the time. 729, so east of Williams Lake, and that's currently at 12,972 hectares. It's classed as under control, and we've got 79 firefighters and 12 pieces of equipment working on that. And when we talk about under control, it means that it's been guarded, and we've had the ability to also then black out what we say in Australia, 2 hose lengths, which is the same up here. So 60 odd metres, 100 feet as such, so blackening out the fire so we can try and contain it as such. The northern edge of that fire is fully contained. Hotspots in the northeastern gully have been extinguished, and we started to demobilise that fire. The north is almost finished, while starting in the southern sectors, crews will continue to seek and destroy any hotspots identified on aerial scans and ground truthing. So we use drones and also helicopters and high-level scanning to do infrared. And for me to do a report and to ensure that the fire is contained and classified as what we would call out, it is that 2 lengths, 3 sources of truth being the ground truth, and a couple of good IR scans to clear the fire. So we're still working on that. Certain areas also being demobilised, and you'll see some smoke visible in some sections of the fire ground. We can't make the whole fire ground black, we can't put out the whole fire, so there'll be areas within that will still be having smoke. It's mainly in the west, but well inside the perimeter of the fire. And the crews are extinguishing those as and when we can actually get crews into the fire ground, deep into the fire ground. To deal with those also, there's aircraft continually flying over all these fires, so anything that is seen from the air, we have the ability to call in bucket chips and deal with that as such. So White Lake, east and west. So we picked up the west. I think that was last Saturday last, we picked up the west. So east and west, 13,211 hectares. We still have 64 firefighters working on those fires and 5 pieces of equipment. The evacuation order is still in place for that area, but we're reviewing that today, and I'll put a report through to my Regional Wildfire Coordination Officer in regards to my recommendations in regards to that order. Yeah, we took over that fire last Saturday. Guards have been established and consolidated, and once again crews are beginning to demobilise. However, it will still be patrolled and hotspotted once we see areas of smoke as such. Fire 870, the Pruton Lake, formerly the UBC research area. That's still causing us a little bit of grief, but we're actually working quite hard on that. 769 hectares, quite hilly and quite challenging. Quite a, what we'd sort of class as an ugly fire, because there's fingers of fire that we need to try and get round with guard, and then we try and tight line and do direct attack on that. 56 firefighters and 37 pieces of equipment currently on that also, which is quite a number of equipment, but once again, as I said, it's a difficult terrain. There's an evacuation order put in there because we had some bad wind come up the other day, and some of our fires had the potential to take a run. We do modelling on all fires, and we look at those hot spots and we look at the impact that the weather's going to have in relation to those hot spots, and the modelling indicated that we needed to move to an evacuation order. Mainly affected the research centre and the lights because it was also the potential threat of fire, but also the smoke that was going to cause concern on the roadways and the likes, and putting visibility on the roadway down to zero. So guard has been secured around that fire and the perimeter, new perimeter to the north. We've been doing some hand burning techniques, so where we can actually burn out so we can get that depth of blackness. We've been doing hand burning in that area, and hose has been installed around the whole perimeter of that fire in regards to protecting the guard. We also put a request in, we did some analysis, and we were looking at doing some strategic burning with aerial ignition to burn out and increase our guard. However, we haven't needed to go to that stage. We also picked up some fires down at Cattleman Lake. The one fire classed as 703. It's 115 hectares, and we're classing that as out of control at this stage because it is difficult terrain. 38 firefighters and 11 pieces of equipment. Hose lay has been installed around the perimeter with bladders assisting with our water supply. There are several hot spots still burning. However, it is very steep terrain, which is causing us a little bit of a challenge in regards to getting machinery into that area. So those areas we'll just have to let it burn out and monitor it once again with aircraft and people on the ground. That will still take, in my opinion, quite a couple of weeks to sort that fire out to the point where we're happy to reclassify those out. Crews are going to continue with any hotspots. Aerial bucketing is also continuing down in that area. We picked up another fire down there called 707 or Hawkins Lake. That's 30 hectares, and we also have 14 firefighters and 10 pieces of equipment working on that. This fire was still classing as out of control because we haven't put a guard around it. We haven't gone in our 2 hose links. Once again, it's quite challenging. The areas, I think it's to the west of that fire, is very steep and very challenging, but we've managed to actually install some sprinkler systems, to the east, in regards to trying to change the environment and the humidity in that area, because once again we can't get machinery down there. So we're going to wet it up as much as we can, and we're going to let the fire trickle to that. We've also used crews to go down and put a hand line in. So we're talking about a mineral earth break about 1 metre wide. So sometimes we'll use that to burn off if conditions allow. The guard's secure. However, we're also using helicopter support to bucket. In regards to helicopters are a fantastic tool, but they don't put the fire out. They'll put water on it, they'll cool it down, but then we need to get the ground crews in to turn over the fuel, to dig down to the roots and turn over the bigger logs and the likes and cut them up in chainsaws. Pardon me. Soda Creek 738, that's currently 251 hectares, that's under control. Gavin Lake, 160 hectares, that's under control. Williams Lake, or we class the Big Lake Complex, fire 906, that's classified as out. And fire 1005, the southwest end of Antony Lake, that's under control also. That still has 197 hectares with 12 firefighters on that. So we've had some good wins in our period of time here in relation to containing fires, blackening out, and changing the classifications of fires from being out of control to under control, and to some of those as being out. Once again, it's been challenging for us, but it's also been rewarding for us to have the opportunity to come over here and work in this environment. And it's a exchange process that we go through in Australia, where we've had people from Canada, British Columbia to come down to assist us with our challenging fire seasons also. We go back, like I said, on Wednesday night, finally get back to where I come from in Tasmania on Friday, and then we're now starting to prep for our fire season. So challenging times for us here. And thank you very much. I hope that's giving you a bit of an update on the fires that I've currently got under my command.
Thank you very much for your service, especially those who've come from elsewhere. Thanks so much for all that you've done and continue to do. Yeah, let's give them a huge hand. Okay, Coralee Oakes, our MLA, and before I turn the microphone over to you, I just want to tell you how much of a help she's been to me and how much of a help she's been to all of you throughout this. She's made herself available. I have her personal cell phone that I promised I would destroy when this is all over, and she has been constantly available, and I just really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and here's Coralee.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to acknowledge Joan, who has worked tirelessly through that. Thank you to the fire service. Again, as they're exiting, and to Neil and Allie, I had the privilege of working with you when you first came into the community of Quesnel, and we are incredibly fortunate to have such a difficult fire season that we've had, but internationally we've had firefighters from all over the globe come and support us, and I can't tell you what that means as we struggle emotionally to deal with fires that have absolutely exploded throughout the entire Cariboo. To know that whether it's Australia or New Zealand, whether it's Ontario or the Northwest Territories, whether it's the United States, or just our amazing university grads that come up here to help us, it has been truly extraordinary. One of the first things that the Wildfire Service did is they sat us down as locally elected officials and say, okay folks, this is going to be a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I think the message that I want to share with each of you, first of all, my heart absolutely goes out to all of you. I drove out and I drove through the communities, and I know how devastating it is, and it's not just now that it's done, but you have to drive by that every day. And I know emotionally I'm glad to have support here for the community members to talk, because I think that's going to be critically important as we look at recovery. But I want you to know how proud I am of this community and how you've responded. From the volunteer fire department, know that what an extraordinary feat that you and your team has done. When I look to what communities need to do in crisis, you stepped up and you've demonstrated that. And know that I will work tirelessly in Victoria to make sure volunteer fire departments are recognized and have the support that you need. And our equipment operators. I mean, all too often we certainly, as first responders, we thank them for the incredible work that they do. But for all of you that showed up with equipment, who showed up with support, to industry that have stepped up and said, look, we're here to help, thank you very much. And just for you, helping your neighbor. This has been an extraordinary event, and what we have seen demonstrated here in Miocene is extraordinary, and I just really want to thank you. I'm here to talk after. We know that recovery is the next piece that we're looking at, is specifically the economic recovery. Know that we will be fighting every single day in Victoria to make sure that the support that's recovered, that will be required to recover the economy, we will be doing that on your behalf. We are prepared to work shoulder to shoulder with you, and I just want to say again, my heart goes out to all of you, and thank you for your incredible resiliency. I have to say one thing, whoever put up the Canadian flag, on the road. Like that is resiliency. In the heart of everything that we see in our communities, to see a Canadian flag standing proud and tall knows that we're going to be resilient and successful. So thank you for whoever did that. It really it warmed my heart. So thanks.
Thanks, Coralee. And next up is our chair, Al Richmond, and here's another guy who has made himself available. God, I think he worked maybe 36 hours in a day, day after day after day. I don't know how you do that. But Al has been our rock, and I really can't express my thanks to him enough. And so now I'll let him recover from that.
I'll just try not to use the mic. Does that work better for everybody? Yeah, okay. I'm here more to listen today than to make a speech, because I've made enough speeches and you've seen enough of me anyway. Thank you very much. I've seen too much of myself on. I haven't seen anything on TV, so I guess I've escaped that. But I know, particularly Spokin Lake folks are out for so long. I spoke to a number of you, not all of you. I heard from many of you, but not all of you. I looked at devastation when I flew over Spokin Lake, and I likened it to just outside my community at 108, where Able Lake Road was devastated, where fires went through and they targeted and they took house after house after house. And similar in size of properties, similar types of homes. There's nothing we can say to fix that. The only saving grace I have, and what does me, lets me sleep at night, is no one's been hurt so far. And so we all got out and we all got back. We may not have got back as how we wanted to get back, or as soon as we wanted to get back, but we get back and we got home. So we'll do the best we can to help you move through the coming days, weeks, and months, because believe me, it's going to be quite a while. We talked about recovery. It's going to be a long time. But we're here to help. We'll do the best we can. And I'll be around later for questions. And once again, thanks to all the volunteers, because just your fire departments, but we talked about the ESS people. Some of the people who were in our ESS had been evacuated from their homes. Some of the people in our EOC who were answering the phones had been evacuated from their homes. Our EOC, the boxes were in the regional district office, better to be evacuated from the building when we were still running an EOC out of there. And we were on a conference call with the folks in the fire center one night, and they had to abort from the call to get out because they were under pressure from the fire. So pretty much everybody you've dealt with has been impacted by these fires. I was evacuated from my home. I signed the order, got myself out. Wasn't really a good feeling. Couldn't get home to get anything out of my house because I was in Williams Lake when that happened. And then I moved my family to my cabin at Chimney Lake, and lo and behold, I evacuated from Chimney Lake. When I got them to Cattleman, I said, thank goodness they're safe, and let me do that. I haven't lost anything. So I know it's like to be moved out. I know it's like not to be able to go home. On the other hand, I was too busy to go home anyway, so that probably didn't matter. But I can only empathize with you folks. Our hearts go out to you, and we're going to try and do the best we can to get you back on your feet again. So thank you.
We do have a couple of minutes for questions, sir.
Mike Doherty. I lived down the Spokin Lake Road since 1981. Our road has been neglected for years. We have a road there that's barely drivable, and that's just the beginning of it now. I'm wondering what you're going to do, what our community is going to do now about the hundreds of so-called danger trees that are laying all over the property, all over the road right away, and it needs to be dealt with. They're going to create an even greater fire hazard in the future, and I think it needs to be dealt with right away. People need help cleaning it up. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you for that. I think maybe Coralee, do you have something to say?
I probably don't need the mic.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, and thank you for raising that, part of the reason why I wanted to try and get out and drive through the communities is to understand exactly what you're living with. And I absolutely agree with you that we need to be getting in and looking at specifically the danger trees and of course the road. The Forest Enhancement Program is a program that was announced, it was announced last year, but I think it's going to be critically important as we look to clean up in communities, and we'll be working closely with Forest Lands and Natural Resources. probably not. Mike, any other suggestions you have, I'd be happy to meet with you after and have that discussion with you.
Thanks, Coralee. And I just had a whisper conversation with Mike from the Forest Service, and he has told me that he will stick around and help to answer those kinds of questions afterwards. But yeah, danger trees were one of the things that we know are huge, and thanks for bringing that up.
I'm doing it again.
Okay. Next up is Reg. Reg didn't come to the head table, so he is Reg Steward from BC Cattleman. And could you come up here so that you can be filmed, please, Reg?
If you need a mic.
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see many of you that I know, many of you that I've had the opportunity to work with as we've tried to facilitate a number of things through the cattlemans, and in particular the development of a system that enabled you to return home for at least the opportunity to feed and water animals, to care for animals, some of you to be able to return and continuously care for your animals. So there was a necessity to develop a system, a necessity to find a way to work with and encourage and discover and to identify the asset that the ranching community in particular is to the province of British Columbia. And so that was the task initially, and so we undertook that, and with super cooperation from the Cariboo Regional District initially, and then working through support from the RCMP, Fire Service, and the Ministry of Transport, we were able to affect some of those things. The ongoing recovery is going to be long-term. The number of cattle lost, the number of fences down, the miles, kilometers of that are as yet untotaled, and it's going to be a process to figure that out. The level of devastation is going to take some time. I have producers out west who don't know where 1,200 cows are. And so there's a lot of time invested in trying to locate and treat and find those. And so there's been some movement forward in the aspect of recovery already. And I have my friend and colleague David Trotter here from the Ministry of Agriculture. And so within that ministry, they've already stepped forward and been able to identify such things as emergency feed, and the ability to do that, the ability to compensate for transportation of animals and evacuation or restoration of animals through different locations. So there's work being done. Fencing crews have been permitted right from the get-go and are out there and trying to get the fences back up when and where in priority order and sequence. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done. BC Cattlemen's is a resource for you if you have any question pertaining to the ranching industry sector, cattle. That's a good filter start, and then we'll work through that. Dave has some forms and information here that pertain to the emergency application for and obtaining of feed, as well as the documents I mentioned that pertain to the evacuation of animals and transport for emergency purposes of those animals. And so we're both available to have that conversation afterwards. So thank you for your cooperation one with another, and it was a process that took some time to establish. It was unprecedented for there to be a need at the scale that there was to have a system that enabled people to return and not to return, and then to develop ministry approved protocols that could define and clarify essential service and those who had to be helped through other means. And so at those ends we worked with people like the BC SPCA to facilitate where it didn't quite fall into the parameter, and the parameters were constantly being stretched. My original statement was, if it moves or it whinnies, it's mine. If it does anything else, then we sent it to the CRD. But I ended up helping bunnies and chickens and things that didn't move or whinny, and we were happy to do that when and where we could. So thank you for your patience in development of the system. And there's been some tough times out there. It's devastating. There are friends, guys that I ride with all the time who don't have a house now, and so many of you know that feeling. So this is not taken lightly. This is not over today. We didn't end anything. We won't end it when the snow flies and the fires are done and Mike gets to relax. It just starts. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Are there any questions for Rich right now, or would we rather wait until after? Yes, yes.
Do you want the mic? Yes.
We were in the middle of hay, and anyways, in regards to recovery for hay, we're in a bit of a jam now because we lost all our hay. Because we had to drop everything to go fight the fires. And I don't know what we're going to do about hay.
And there is an answer to that. Dave, would you like to come up and speak to
Yeah,
that, please?
you'll find, hi, there's a program that was initiated by the provincial government, Emergency Management BC. There's $1 million that's been set aside for emergency hay for 2 weeks for any producer who's out of hay. So all you have to do, there's a pamphlet right there.
The only thing I'm worried about, the winter's hay.
Yeah, no, and that's what we're worried about as well. So there is a program right now, producers can phone the Prince George office, they'll put an application together, they'll evaluate what your need is, and they'll basically deliver the 2 weeks of hay wherever you want it delivered. Okay?
And going forward, there is a realization that even things like your fall graze that's being used up right now or got burned off, and the need then to change direction and alternately feed now, do something different, those are all on the table right now. So there's a lot of solutions that are being tossed about. There is a full awareness of the fact that just because you lost your stack doesn't mean that you're only going to be impacted for this period of time, because if you now turn onto what would be your spring graze and you've got that gone, then the grass management in the spring changes and everything changes for a period of time. So all of those things are on the table, and we're hearing those concerns, and I know that Kevin Boone, the manager of BC Cattleman's, is well versed in that and is pulling people around. The government's helping, the opposition are helping significantly in keeping that issue before you. So I think there's going to be some solutions to that, and the best thing that's happened is that there's an awareness that just because the fire ran over your grass now, doesn't mean that that solves the problem once that grass maybe comes back. So there's a long-term issue here, and it's being addressed.
Right, so just grab the form, phone the pre-oc in Prince George. There's agriculture staff that are there to help you through the form. They'll process it, they'll get the haulers in place, and they'll get it to wherever you want it.
My cows are on pasture right now, they're okay.
Right.
Yep. I mean in future.
Yep, that's right, and that's you'd be eligible.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep,
and we want to
so-
help.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I was going to mention, working with the federal government right now, the Ministry of Agriculture with our business development people, we're basically in negotiations with the feds right now, and there's going to be an agri-recovery submission that's going in, and we're trying to tally out. That's going to, as George said, there's going to be some time before we get there, but that we are going to get there in the feds, and the feds have come to us and said, we're going to be there to help you, right? So.
Okay, just a few questions. With the agri-recovery, do you have to be signed up beforehand? Because a lot of these people are small people and won't be signed up.
No, the agri-recovery is sort of a Fed-Prov between the provincial government and the federal. So working through the Ministry of Agriculture, working through probably range staff as well, if you've got range tenures, those would be the ones to start accumulating that information. And our business risk management group is the one that's putting that together. So once they tally up what those needs are, that money will go out and a program will be made available to you to start recuperating and doing that recovery for you. Right.
Okay, another question about fences. I know a lot of people that have lost fences, and a lot of people are under the assumption that they're only going to get help if their fence is up against crown land, and I don't know if that's true or not. Or if there will be compensated if, say, it was a back fence, but in order somebody else's fence.
And those questions are on the table right now. There are no answers, but at least the right questions are on the table. Some of it is very clear. The highway fencing, Schedule 1, Schedule 2, those things are really clear. Those fences are rolling already, and those guys are doing a great job. The private fencing, the cross fencing, those kinds of things, people understand that that's a significant infrastructure issue, and where that lies is unknown at this point, but the question's on the table. What do we do about that?
Yeah, that was one of the first questions that was brought
Another
forward.
question being is a lot of people being smaller operations that are more apt to jump in, hands-on, just want to get the job done, will they be allowed to do it and be compensated as opposed to just hiring a big fencing contractor to do the job?
Good question, and my input to that has already been that we can't find enough fencing contractors to do this. There's gonna have to be a system where the individuals can do their fencing to a standard, keep your receipts, keep all of that thing. If it's an essential fence, it's gotta go up right away. Hang on to the receipts because there's no process yet. But at some point, there's going to have to be a process that acknowledges the skill and the ability of the ranchers and the people who are gonna put the fence up, monitor it to a certain standard, and then find some form if there's going to be some compensation there. There aren't enough fencing contractors to wait for that guy to come and do all of our cross fences.
Take some pictures before, don't just do it, take some pictures, and so you have evidence of loss of the fence, and then there's not a debate that it was actually lost. Just, every time you start a project before it's approved to be done, there's always the risk. So if you take a picture, if you document, these been a fence, take a picture of it, keep it, and you have it submit with your information. It's just one good piece of documentation that's really important to have.
That's a very good point. And be in touch with the Ministry of Ag people. If you have a concern and you're a small producer, don't feel like you're just a lost voice out there, because you do matter. And it's important, but if we don't have a collective idea of what those questions are, there's no way that there can be a collective solution to that. So if you are in touch, the ministry are going to be the people who will be able to hear those things, identify that we've got X number of people who have this situation. It's not just you by yourself. But they won't generate a program to solve an issue that hasn't been made aware to them. So,
Exactly.
so if you can do that, just feed that in, let them know. They'll realize there's a whole bunch of people with this and we need to solve on this. So.
Yeah, definitely reach out to the Ministry of Agriculture. Those numbers are there for you to contact us. And we need to accumulate what those needs are, because we've got the questions back from our business risk management group. They want to know what those issues are. They want to know because if we're going to put that claim in to the federal government, we need to be sure that we get all that covered. And we're working very closely with the Forest Service range staff. So if that's part of the issue too, we have daily meetings every day talking about what the issues are that ranchers and the communities are working with. So please, yeah, exactly, Reg, please reach out to us.
I have one more thing just to knit around about, sorry guys. As to the removal of the burnt sticks, right, as they're dangerous, for that to entail back to the road, because if we're gonna have logging truck traffic on this little tiny road, it's gonna be a danger.
Okay. I can't answer that question, but...
The good news is we can't answer that question.
Yeah, but don't lose it, right? Let us know.
It's an important question and ask out.
Is narrow for pickups passing, let alone...
Oh, for sure, yeah, there's a huge amount of danger there, yeah. So thank you very much for your comments, appreciate it. Okay? And Reggie and I are here, if you have got any more questions, and the forms are there, okay?
I'm here for the long term. Dave's come in and he's come up to help us, and the Ministry of Ag have sent, I think you're the 6th guy they've sent me, so I'm not sure what that means, but...
Yeah, well, we don't get along with Reg very well. We get along with Reg really well.
Yeah.
Look, Reg, to be honest, I've been in here just for this first week. I cannot believe what this guy has done for you guys and what he's accomplished and how well he's worked with the CRD. The CRD's been really key to this, and Reg and the Cattleman are really there for you. So this has been a great relationship, and this is going to be a model, actually, I think, my personal opinion, of how it should work, right? So.
I'm happy to be here this afternoon, although I wish it was under different circumstances. My heart really does go out to all of you who have been affected by the fires, and especially to those who have lost your home. One of the things that we don't tend to take care of when we have experienced a critical incident or a hugely traumatic event is our own mental health. Because everything that you have talked about so far has been logistic stuff, things that need to be taken care of, and we have to carry on, right? What's the phrase that has been used? Cariboo strong. And yes, we are, but we need to make sure we stay that way. And so in order to do that, you have to take care of your mental health. And so I'm just here to remind you that some of you may have already experienced some physical things, emotional things, mental things and behavioral things, things that, you know, you say to yourself, okay, that's not like me, why am I behaving that way? Or maybe you're not sleeping well at night, maybe you're having nightmares, maybe you're experiencing pains that you've never had before, or having panic attacks. These are all normal things that happen because of an abnormal event. And it has been very traumatic. And one of the first things to recognize is that we need to be aware. That's one of the first steps to managing the stress and what you're feeling. So I really encourage you to be aware. I have left on the table there some signs and symptoms of what you can be experiencing. Some of you may not be experiencing anything right now. However, in the weeks or months to come, you may start and then kind of wonder, what is going on? And again, that's a normal response to a very traumatic situation. So I want you to know you're not going crazy, and some of you may have felt that way. You're not going crazy. It is just a normal reaction to something that's very abnormal. On the back of the sheet are things, just some tips and things to try, and you know, talking about your experience, not dwelling on the negative, but talking with your friends, talking with even a professional about what you experienced and what you're going through can definitely help you heal and help you move forward. I've also left on the back a pamphlet that has to do with the crisis line, the Interior Crisis Line Network. Inside, I was asked by Tim to bring something that had a lot of resource numbers on it. So inside in the middle is a lot of the resource numbers that are in our community. Anywhere from the community crisis response team to the medical clinics, or some of them, I may not have gotten all of them on there. Mental health, substance use, Canadian Mental Health Association phone numbers, and also the crisis line number. So my encouragement to you today is to please make sure you're taking care of yourself, and if you really need to find someone to talk to.
From the Red Cross.
Can you hear me okay if I don't use the mic? Yeah. Perfect. So hello everyone, thanks for having us here. I'm the operations manager right now for the Red Cross for this part of the province, so this area here and Prince George and 100 Mile area. And my day-to-day job is with the disaster management program for BC, so I'm around for the long term here and kind of float around the province. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. You probably already know about some of the supports available from the Red Cross. You've probably received some of them already, but I'll just go through some of that, and I'm certainly happy to talk about your individual situations. If you have any questions afterwards, I'll be around with Callie and with Stephanie. So you probably know, right in the early days, the provincial government announced some support that would be coming from the Red Cross. So that was $600 per household. Some of you have probably received that. Some of you might be waiting. Certainly there's been quite a backlog with how complex this thing has been around the province and how many thousands of households has been registered. So let me know if you want to talk about that afterwards, a specific case. But that initial $600 per household is available to all of you that have left. The provincial government also announced another $600 for people that were out for more than 14 days at a time. You all know you were out for some of the longest of anyone in the province, so that will be available to you as well. $600 for the extra 14 days. You know how long you were out. It was more than 14 days. It was more than 28 days. So that assistance is now confirmed from the province and will start to come to you as well in the same way that the other assistance is coming. So mostly email money transfers for those that can do that and are comfortable with that, and through the prepaid payment cards for those of you that prefer that. So we've got our center in Williams Lake and Boitanio Mall will certainly be there for the long term. We're open 9 to 5 these days, Monday to Saturday. So feel free to come in and chat with us there about that assistance. Also, now that you're home, a lot of you probably know that there was an additional $300 per household for when you re-entered to help with some of those initial costs of replacing groceries, probably, right, some of the cleanup. I know that some of you have already received that. Those of you that haven't yet, that will be coming to you as well. There's also some additional assistance for people who did have major damage to their homes or destroyed, and especially people who are not insured. So certainly come see us if you'd like at the mall to talk more about that. So that's kind of for the individual families and households. There's also some new programs that were announced this past week. One is for small businesses, so a $1,500 grant for people who have small businesses. That might be a lot of you. I know some people have already applied for that. And so that's for businesses that were running when the fire started and that were affected, right? Like if you had to evacuate and you couldn't operate your business. So I can give you a phone number. I've also got some resources on the back table with more information about that, as well as something new called a Community Partnerships Program, which is for people, especially if you run kind of an organization or an agency in town here, and you're looking to have some kind of activity to help the community recover, right? So, you're holding a barbecue, you have some kind of mental health supports you want to offer, certainly apply for some support from the Red Cross as well, and information on that back table. Any questions? I think that's it for me. Yeah.
Did not the federal government say that they were going to be helping as well?
Federal government, I probably shouldn't speak to that. It's been provincial government mostly that's been working directly with the Red Cross, as well as donations from across the country, right? That's where the majority of the support has come from.
Mm-hmm. But they announced at one point that the federal government would kick in the same amount as the provincial. And we never heard anything more.
Right. So what that was, I think the announcement was quite unclear. It wasn't the same. The provincial government was money that would go directly to households, right, during what we call the relief phase, which is usually while you're out of your homes for the first little while. The federal government money is going to be going directly more to communities for longer-term recovery. So I know it wasn't clear, but that's our understanding now. So that's going to be long-term money for us, as we've heard about, the months and years to come for whole community projects and recovery work. Yeah.
So Naomi, could I just, I'm sorry, I didn't want to butt in your head. I just wanted to ask about those who didn't leave, because there are people here who didn't leave. They are still eligible for that money per household, correct?
So evacuation orders, if you were under an evacuation order, then yes, you're eligible.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a question there?
I don't have that fancy email stuff, I don't have a computer.
Okay.
And the only thing I can get is a cash card.
Okay.
Well, a cash card isn't gonna fix my fences or buy me hay.
Yeah.
So I really can't use the cash card.
Okay.
I need actual funds in my account.
Okay, so we do have an option. It's kind of another plan for people that email money transfer won't work, cash cards won't work. It's an option for a check. We don't do it very often because it takes a bit of time, but certainly we can talk about that afterwards. All right, thank you.
Andy Northup from Samaritan's first.
No, I don't think so. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to quickly say that Samaritan's first home base is in Calgary, and we have presently been on the ground for 2 weeks, and we're set up at the Calvary Church in Williams Lake. We've been working in various areas, and of course we've been in Spokin Lake already. Really, our mandate is to work. We work with volunteers and staff, and we offer a free service to remove fridges and freezers. Obviously, if you've been away and your power's been off, you'd like to get rid of your fridge and freezer. We also, for those who have lost their homes, we also offer, we sift ash so that we can try to find some of your possessions. We're not always successful, but a lot of times we're able to find maybe that a ring that your grandmother had left you, or things like that. So we would certainly give that a valiant go if you need help in that. And for those who are probably underinsured or non-insured, we do offer site cleanup and debris cleanup too. So these are on the back table. It's a 1866 number, and then just another little poster. And this phone number, when you call, will end up in our office in our tractor trailer that is sitting at the Calvary Church. So there's always somebody there to answer the phone, or if not, you just leave a message. When you call in, we just fill out a work order, and then we have somebody follow up to come out to help out. We also travel with chaplains. They're for our staff and for our volunteers, but they're also for the homeowner if that is something that you would want. So I just wanted to make that available also, and just our prayers and thoughts are with you folks, all you've gone through. Thank you.